always like to check to make sure it's actually going to work. I have had a number of times where it's like, why isn't the technology sending things? So. There it is. Cool. Earlier in the week, my live YouTube, that's where it's like, why isn't the technology sending? It wasn't giving me pings. So. All right, cool. Awesome. Well, I'm glad you were here. Yeah. It's cool. So, for those in the library, some of you have been here all week and know, I'm about to make noisy things happen over here. So I'm sorry. I'm just preparing you. If you came for a quiet study space, they know I'm here. And I'll try not to be obnoxious, but I am loud. So this is the last day of COYOTECON 2025. We have 3 more workshops that for sure are happening. 2 in this space and 1 in the room where the D&D club usually rolls out. Today's programming is developing interesting characters. In this session, I'm going to specifically focus on the hat model, as well as how we can embody characters physically, linguistically, and then also consider how we can describe characters or display their personality through artifacts and other external identifiers, what they might look like. So we'll talk more about that. And how to role play that in games like Dungeons & Dragons and other tabletop gaming. So, as a place to start with that handout, we have the hat model. When we're developing interesting characters, we can think of role playing as, for the same reason that we talk about putting on different hats. A construction worker might wear a certain type of hat, or and that would identify them. It might be a chef's hat. We might see someone in one of those Alaskan trapper hats and think something specific about that. So there's characterization that happens in some of our adornment. In the same way, individual players often will create characters that where they're trying to embody that role. And so, and then we also have people who might run a game who are constantly changing between other characters that the players have to interact with. And so thinking through specific characters and not just giving them one shtick allows us to think in a more complex way and have a better sense of how specific characters might engage in the world that they get dropped into. So just for some context, tabletop gaming, Dungeons & Dragons, these are collaborative storytelling games where it's not so much competing to win, so it's not about whether you win or lose, it's how epically you succeed or fail. And so if you are telling the story with friends around a table together as a game, your character can succeed, but part of the fun is how are they doing things. It's not in the same way that when we look at stories that may feel like a tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast style, tale as old as time, right? So if we have something like that where it's a very obvious plot line, the thing that makes it interesting isn't that the guy gets the girl, or that the bell transforms the beast. That's just the structure, but how they tell it in a magical castle with candelabras and the features of the men and women and other characters around. Those unique pieces are in the important parts of the telling. How's it going?
Good. Is a signing in thing?
I haven't laid out a sign-in sheet. I probably have one somewhere. Otherwise, I will get there sometime. So, but you're welcome to go ahead and take one of those handouts. I'll try and bust out a sign-in sheet before I'm done here. How's it going? So, if we're thinking about keeping this in mind, it's when we're doing tabletop gaming or when we're designing characters, it isn't about having the most original character in one sense. It's not trying to fight some sort of archetype. It's doing a unique, doing your own spin on the archetype. even the same character dropped into a different world with different people is going to respond and grow in different ways. And so we get to explore that in tabletop gaming. And so having a sense of who the character is and who they might be trying to become or how they might respond to the world around them, that's a little bit of how you develop an interesting character. You have to ask some key questions about that character to figure out what their hat is. So I use the hat model as a place to start. Let me put that one up here. And I'm also going to change it here. The other one. Okay, that didn't work. It's close enough. Okay, so the hat model, and I don't usually, like in life, it's not my standard procedure to start with the negative, but it does work really well for an acronym, and I'm a sucker for that as an English professor, which I didn't start by introducing myself. So hi, my name is Greg. Dr. Greg Fields. Some people call me Dr. Egg because sometimes I'm a little scrambled because I do spell it with 2 G's at the end. But I teach English 101, 102. I teach mythology and technical writing here. I'm also the D&D club advisor. On campus, we meet 2 nights a week, so I will do a shameless plug and hand out a card for that for you. We do stream and have other D&D content along with whatever random videos I end up putting on the internet, for better or worse. As a professor, trying to support students and the people around me. I also do teach. I have a specialization in second language and translingual writing. I do teach graduate students over at ASU from time to time on how to teach ESL students, and so that's always fun. And so what that means is that when I'm talking about like character voicing, you'll get a lot of the linguistics science coming through in how I frame that, and I did one of those workshops earlier in the week that's live streamed on that channel if you're interested. But back to the model. So, and before actually, who are you? Let's do that. I introduced myself, but who are you? Before you can assume someone else as a character, we should know who we are, right? Anchor ourselves in our own identity. I'm over full of philosophizing. Hi.
I'm Joshua.
Nice to meet you, Joshua.
Yeah. Is there anything else I should say? Like.
Do you have background in gaming or storytelling or anything like that?
I mean, I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons like about a year ago.
Nice. Was Baldur's Gate an inspiration?
Actually, I played Baldur's Gate after I played my first campaign.
Nice.
Yeah, and both were really fun.
What was your first character?
My first character was a Dragonborn bard.
Excellent.
Hi, my name's Joe. I've been playing D&D for like 8 or 9 years now.
How'd you get started?
My older brother and his friends, he was talking about it, and I started doing some research into it, and me and my older brother started getting into it at the same time.
Excellent.
The first character I ever played was a paladin. It was a campaign with me, my older brother was the DM, and then my father. My dad was a rogue, and I was a paladin, and so we had the
Natural
clashing
tension.
dynamic.
So you got to get out your frustrations in your father-son roles in character?
Exactly, it was great.
Though he was the sneaky one, and maybe is that closer to you guys' family dynamic, or is it reversed?
He's usually the sneaky one. I'm the one who's always been more forthcoming and like, Dad, what are you doing?
Nice. Cool. So Joshua and Joe, nice to meet you.
I'm Ryan. I've been playing D&D for a few years now. I also started with his older brother because him and my older stepbrother used to be friends. So
Used to be. Well, that sounds like a sad story. But that's cool.
But I think my first character was a halfling rogue, where I managed to not hit a single attack in the entire session.
Yeah.
No, it was just one.
It's just the one, okay?
I thought you played D&D before.
I don't think so.
No?
I've had 3 natural 1 attack rolls in a row, on like 3 separate rounds.
Those are rough. That's rough. Well, the part, I'm not sure if you heard how I usually introduce D&D and other tabletop games. Part of the fun of these games is because they're collaborative storytelling, it isn't so much about winning or losing, it's how epically you succeed or fail. And so the how was really what we're emphasizing. So yeah, so all the nat ones in the world make for amazing storytelling and sometimes really sad feelings on the inside that you save for later or eat all the snacks because of. So yeah, okay, cool. Well, so I'll go ahead and jump in. So when we're thinking about developing interesting characters, We don't want them to be just one note, so they have to have some texture. And so some questions we can ask to get really pushing deeper is, what does my character hate and why? Who does my character hate and why? And sometimes it's starting with general categories like classes of society, or I don't like rogues, a rogue, or it's that, what's the classic trope, ranger versus rogue? Arrow strikes the rogue, this is my audition for your party. New second arrow with a message that says, if I wanted to kill the rogue, I would have, kind of thing. So, like, we could think big picture, like, I just don't like this type of person. The more you talk with whoever's running a game, or think about the setting of your story, the easier it is to get to really specific choices about what or who your character really doesn't like. Now, the reason it's important to get to the hate level, and not that I'm not encouraging hate. I had a workshop on Tuesday about empathy, so just take it in context. But when it comes to character development, it's what is the thing that will force my character to act? So in rhetoric, we might call it exigence or exigency. It's like, what's the thing that I feel forced to, I have to respond to this. I can't let it go. Some people will go along to get along and put up with a lot of stuff. What's the thing that will trigger my character, like, I can't stand it? Because if you can identify that, then when you're role playing, it will feel more authentic, and if your DM knows that, they will be able to kind of seed the story with pieces that might draw your attention or allow you to have deeper role play. So first question, and we'll go ahead and do this walk through. It is workshop style. So write on your paper what's something that your character would hate, or who. And I can try and get it. If you need a book to write on, as a hard surface. I don't know if that'll help.
I've seen so many source books in one place.
Don't judge me. There was a sale on Amazon a year or two ago. Before I knew it was like the month before I found out they were coming out with the new D&D rule sets.
Yeah.
I bought like 8 books on sale.
The 2024 one?
Yeah. So I got all the old ones. Some of them I needed anyway. So, all right. But yeah. So go ahead and just take a minute. Think about it. It can be a character you currently have if it just helps you to anchor the model, or if you're thinking about developing a new one or a new NPC. Pick a character, any character. Let's start building their hats. What or who do they hate and why?
I could start building out my tier campaign.
Honestly, it's probably why the books are on sale. Some new edition was coming out.
Maybe they could have been trying to clear stock. Every now and then, though, it was like December, so it's not uncommon for them to have this like buy the bundle or it gets 40% off. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's all it was. So. And then there was so then it was like legal things for. Never mind. This is still coming through, right? Hopefully you were able to get started on that. It's good to think about these things. And so again, the purpose of this, if you want to put it in the margin or just kind of hang on to the thought, is we try and identify the extreme feelings of the character because it makes for a little more drama and really figures out what's it going to take to get my character out of their comfort zone. What's it going to take for them to start growing? In the same way that pressure in life forces us to change or make decisions, right? It's the fact that I'm hungry that I get forced to go, or that I have to pay rent, that I force myself to go get a job. right? Or I need to get to school, and so I go find a way to pay for a car insurance or whatever it is. In the same way, those the tensions we put our characters under are going to draw out certain parts of who they are. And the most interesting characters are not the static ones, it's the ones that grow. And so we want to see a character travel through a story arc of their own. That's where there's the classic phrase of every character is the hero of their own story, right? And if you happen to be, if it's an ensemble cast, that's fine, but that character's perception is that, like us, we tend to focus on our own path and growth and things. Even if we care about others and we tend to be others oriented, we still are like, how do I become better for others? The focus is still a little bit on ourselves. So for the same reason, so what does my character hate? Who do they hate? And then why helps us get deeper into what's going to be the trigger, or allows us to develop that backstory in a little more depth. Traditionally, D&D uses terms like ideals and bonds and things like that. And traits, I like thinking of it this way because it sets it in a more social, contextual relationship. So instead of just like, I don't like to see, the underdog lose, or I don't like bullies. Instead, we have, I hate bullies because, and we have a story connected to that ideal or belief or whatever. Then we ask, for the HAT model, HAT, what does my character adore and why? Who does my character adore and why? So who am I going to be fawning over? And for some time, that word adore can go a lot of different ways. Sometimes the who is like, I adore small children, they're so cute, let me pinch their cheeks. That could be silly. Like if it's a grandma character, maybe that's part of the fun. Maybe someone's like, I adore children because they want to be a parent someday, or they're a big brother, and so the why matters. If instead it's more of that classic like trope bard flirt thing, I adore, and suddenly it has like a sexual connotation or something, right? So whichever version it is for your character, think through the why of it and try and let it be a little more varied, right? So that even if you have a character who's leaning into that and you're doing the bard who flirts with everyone, does he or she or they have a type? And if so, do they have a reason why that's their type, right? Man, Dragonborn, just the scales, it's the texture, something weird, like something that really anchors it. Not to make it. Do what?
You can tell what the end goal of that character would be.
Yeah, and also like maybe it starts. And the funny thing is like maybe something starts there like initially, and then if that's where they're starting, then they have a tagline a little bit at first, and a story they can tell in like the first couple episodes or sessions. And then over time, it's like maybe hanging out with the other characters, people are like, dude, grow up. Or like, yes, and underneath the scales, and then it becomes like maybe it's a silly thing that happens, or maybe it's like, depending on their intelligence or insight, like what, blood and muscles, or they go deeper. And so it can be a possible, when you have that initial trope, growing into a spiritual awakening or a social or emotional awakening can be really meaningful as a character arc. So even if you start a little bit surface, or a little bit materialistic as a character, you can that sets up room for growth, which can be fun. But what is so right on your sheet, what does my character adore? Who does my character adore? Traditionally, it's a little too easy to say gold, right? I'm just in it for the coin, said every adventurer ever, or every mercenary ever, right? So yeah, and it's like, well, maybe, is that really why the rogue steals? Or does it make them feel empowered? Does a rogue steal because it's a meaningful diversion from the trauma of their childhood? Do they steal because do they want coin because that will make them feel like Gatsby, right? Because he feels like he can now get the woman he loves, and then finds out she's a terrible person anyways. So, what is it for your character? Even materialistic things we adore might have deeper reasonings to them. All you can think of is Donkey from...
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Was the
Leaders for the dragons?
Yeah.
Say it again.
Don't
They
kid
had-
kids with
yeah.
aggression.
His yeah, his initial thing is like trying to survive, so he flirts, right?
Yeah.
But really, he is also looking for. He's a social creature, right? He wants a friend. He like his. It's a great thing, great actual test study of like starts out as an awkward, character who is just trying to make a friend in the only place that where he had any sort of hope of, someone as weird as him. And so he finds a friend, and then in the process of trying to kind of be a good friend, flirts with a lady. Turns out that she likes him, and yeah, awkwardness ensues. But the arc is he becomes like a good family man, right? That's fun.
So
That's a good
the
one.
adoring section could also be something that the character they really want something, like say like something happened in the past and they want to find like the desperate to find any leads towards like uncovering that or figuring it out.
Yeah. So it's so we can, and there's a version of this where we ask the question at the top, what do they want, and then it becomes the what model. But that's not as fun as the hat model. So that is a question to ask. But yeah, so if it's like, what do I adore? Is it an activity? Is it a person? And so if it leads to like I want to find clues, it could be that I hate these people because I had a clue about something bad that happened, my cousin died or whatever, or I adored my cousin so much but now they're gone. I need to find clues to figure out.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, what is it?
So I remember going to, I think it was you, and it was for D&D.
A year or two ago?
Yeah, it was in high school.
Oh, did you come over here with the class that one time?
Yeah.
Did your class have the one with the Irish dude in it?
No.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Well, because one of my voices that I do is kind of basically a little leprechaun, not intentionally, but Punto Reed was at your service, and so like someone turned to him and was like, "How do you do?" He's like, "It's pretty good," but it was still awkward. So, but yeah, okay, cool, good. Well, that's awesome. I'm glad. So were you able to use some of those things?
Well, I was trying to get.
It was a year ago, but
Yeah, it was what, 3 years ago now.
Oh, okay,
I was
so that was
trying
one of
to
the first
get-
ones. Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to get my girlfriend and one of her friends in D&D, and it actually ended up leading us into playing Baldur's Gate together because it like kind of piqued her interest in like creating characters and stuff, and we started talking about it more. And her
Nice.
friend hasn't bought Baldur's Gate yet, but plans to because she wants to make a bimbo fairy, which is the character she made here.
Like at the workshop with
Yeah.
me 3 years ago. That's hilarious.
I remember distinctly her looking at you and going, "Can my character be a bimbo?" And you going, "Sure, anything you want, I guess."
See, now I'm glad I'm live streaming because when you come back again in 2 more years, we'll be able to. Yeah, I didn't live stream. I didn't have the technology for it yet. That's hilarious. Yeah. I mean, I try. I'm like, if that's what you want to do, sure. Right. Yeah. So that does sound like something I'd say. That's amazing. It would be cool. Like if you want, like have her go and like post this from 3 years ago. I did this workshop or whatever. That'd be fun. As a comment on the live stream. After the fact. All right. That's amazingly fun that you are back 3 years later. Cool. So we want to ask, what does my character adore? Who does my character adore? And that can lead in, all of these things ultimately will lead into the question of what do they want as a result? Do I want to see, if I have someone I hate, do I want to see them suffer? If I have someone I hate, do I want to see them fall? And why I hate them may affect how I'm trying to affect their life or keep them from affecting mine. And then the last one is, who does my character trust? Now, I will say the easiest thing that in D&D for someone to put down is only themselves. Easiest thing in the world. It's like, I don't know anybody, I don't want to know anybody. It's like, I only trust myself. It's like, that's kind of an easy out. So, even if it's like my pet cat or my mom, like somebody, who is it that my character actually does trust? Because nobody is completely, or it's really hard to find like the completely untrusting person in every context. And sometimes for the wrong reasons they'll trust because it's too much effort not to. so take a moment and say, this particular character, who do they trust and why is that the person they trust? What did that person do? What is their relationship like? Is it one of those, I trust them because To assume that they're lying to me is a scarier thought or makes me question my own judgment, that kind of thing. Or they're my parents, so I have to. I don't want to assume that they've been being selfish this whole time. Like, I think of Rapunzel and Mother Gothel, right? She assumes mother knows best, right? Want to come join a D&D character building session?
We're okay, we're trying to film a project right now.
Oh, I'm going to mess you up.
You're good.
Donuts. Okay. Who'd you decide your characters trusted? What we got?
Well, my character that I'm currently playing, he is a druid. He had a mentor. That being probably one of, if not the only character that he really trusts.
Okay. So he's a mentor that he trusts. Is the mentor actually trustworthy?
Well, that's what I'm thinking about. Actually, I mean, it would be more interesting if like they seem trustworthy, but then flip the script, and it turns out they're like associated with his past, kind of thing.
That can be really interesting to have. So you said it'd be more interesting to have a mentor you can't trust.
Yeah.
Or for them to be revealed as. It depends on where in the story. Because it's really easy to set a trusted character up as a betrayal. Like that creates drama, but sometimes it doesn't feel authentic to the character. And so if you have a series of trustworthy NPCs that happen, so then the party gets lulled into a state of comfort, that then having one of them betray, one mentor betrays, interesting. If every NPC is actually not trustworthy because they become that session or that level or that area's bad guy, I knew I couldn't trust them. Your players will actually assume they can't trust anybody. So then when the mentor shows up, even if they're trustworthy, it becomes an interesting thing that the characters push and and question. Does that make sense? So it really is in the context. We want to assume sometimes that every character, like making someone who's supposed to be trustworthy, making them untrusting. But if you do that as a constant, it becomes the white noise, and so it's not as interesting. It is meaningful and kind of good to have at least some NPCs who are reliable, right? Because it is so common. Like I said, for the same reason that getting to a place where the easy thing is to say my character doesn't trust anyone because the sad backstory, right? I was watching a panel with like Brandon Sanderson and some other writers, like the Fablehaven guy and other people, and it's like that fantasy trope of I grew up on a farm as an orphan because my parents died somewhere, or it's like it's Harry Potter, right? Frodo, technically his parents don't show up, so Bilbo's his kind of the person who takes care of him. In like the Belgariad, that's another one, like a 1980s one, but it's basically the kid grows up on a farm. He thinks it's his Aunt Polgara, but his parents are dead. And so anytime you have a child of promise, they usually come from a background. So if everybody in the area has that as part of their backstory, they have some betrayal that led them to adventure, it starts to become not so interesting. So betrayal can't be the only thing you lean into. So not to challenge you. I didn't mean for it to come across.
That's good.
Just wanted to nuance it. What did you decide for your trust?
So my character, me and my older brother, recruited a subclass. So it's not a subclass, but like a class itself, where it's basically fighter. But I wanted to have like a pet, and he was like, "Let's do a dragon because it's cool."
Because dragons.
And so I am soulbound with like a dragon egg.
Oh jeez.
And so I put the dragon that is inside the egg is what I trust the most. And currently I'm on a adventure as a far traveler to try to find the egg that was stolen from me.
That's cool. Do you have psychic connection?
Yeah, so I can kind of like figure out where it is, which is how I was able to follow it from because I'm a Norseman, and so I come from like the deep north, but the campaign takes place in a land called Asir, which is like the deserts of like the south.
Nice.
And so for like a door, I was able to put like my parents and talk about like how my father was a swordsman who taught me the sword, and then my mother, she was an alchemist who because my older brother's doing a whole like alchemy thing.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna try to embody that with my character through his mom's teachings of like alchemy, and so then I'm gonna be able to use like potions, and then I have the dragonbound magic and stuff. So I'm trying to tie all that into the character.
That's a lot of fun. I like it. And if the egg hasn't hatched yet,
Yes.
if you acquire it back, what becomes interesting is are you going to allow there to be like a dialogue through the eggshell, like in your mind, and can the DM run it that way? Because that could be a really interesting, like as the dragon's maturing inside the egg, maybe its ability to speak, like that could be a leveling up or a intriguing like character development of the story, where that as that bond grows closer, you actually get better communication. So that could be fun.
Yeah, I know the way that the class is set up is that my level and then the dragon's like age and size are similar. So the dragon will hatch when I hit level 3, which is like getting my subclass, and then it starts out as like a little wormling. So like it'll be on my shoulder. There's really like a very small amount of health, but it can like shoot fire.
It comes out. It's almost like a pseudo dragon type.
Yeah, and then by level, I think it was 10. It's like a full-size dragon that has like, I think it was like 20 D10 health,
Nice.
something like that.
Yeah. That's awesome. Because the young dragons, I think, are like CR 10s or 11s. So I would almost put you, like if I were leveling it, if I were building the class, if it's homebrew anyways, I might have it wait a little bit. I might let the character be 13, 14, or 15 just to match the CR rating. But that's if you're using traditional stats too, so that's cool.
For
I like it though.
His campaigns becomes.
So it does matter.
We're all good at D&D because we've played so much, and so,
So
he has
everything's got to be.
Yeah, like for the campaign that we're about to finish up, the Dragon Slayers campaign, we're all level 13?
14.
We're all level 14.
Nice.
And he's made a black dragon into a level 20 wizard, and that's the final boss. So not only is it a black dragon with, all of the black dragon
things.
and
But you
abilities,
cast magic.
but
Yeah.
it also is an insanely powerful wizard and, is extremely strong. And he's like, you're all probably gonna die. We're like,
That's
cool.
really cool. That's awesome.
Imagine trying to cast fireball and then it just counter spells it.
Cool. Well, so okay, and then Ron, what you have?
So for me, like the Asir Desert is like big on slave trade.
Okay.
So my entrusted is a fellow like enslaved person that I worked alongside with for a long time.
Yeah. And did you escape and they didn't? Or did both of you escape?
Well, I'm making a warlock, so I was gonna make a deal with like a patron to be able to escape. But I would imagine that.
So you would
Same
so
opportunity.
to escape slavery, you enslaved yourself to someone else.
Yeah.
But it was agentive, so
But this
it's like
one was, like,
indentured
consensual.
servitude versus okay. Interesting.
Doesn't the campaign start in the gladiatorial arena where we're slaves? So would you have to be captured again?
I don't remember.
That's how it starts.
Okay.
So that's what's really interesting about that is anytime, and this is more like, this might be something more for like one of my DMing workshops, but what I like about this idea is when you have a character who's in that role, you can get the table to start engaging with ideas like that, like, so what counts as slavery exactly? What counts as agentive choice exactly? And so you can use, so that can be a fun way to work in like larger themes, like more like with high stakes, where you get to have kind of philosophical debates, but in the voicings of your characters. And it's a way too texture a game, as opposed, in the same way that some people just really like doing a lot of combat. So, it adds some fireside chat type things. Okay, so we've gone through what do I hate, what do I adore, or who, and then who can I trust, who do I trust, and why. And the why again is really important. But then we can start looking at where's my mouse? There it is. Then we do want to start asking that question of like, what does my character look like? And so that's where we start getting into specific settings and worlds, and choosing races or species and classes as a starting place, because if you are a Dragonborn, you are going to have a very distinct feature. And if that's something that matters in the world, that could be really important. If you're a Dragonborn, it might matter if you're a chromatic or metallic, if that world's setting makes that a clear distinction, right? And so thinking through that race choice first is meaningful, but we also I want to spend more time thinking about beyond that, because when we're talking about what a character looks like, the things that matter are the things that make them identifiable, right? And so for the same reason that, like, if we're writing a kid's book, or when we're communicating stories with kids, like, they only need, you get two stick figures. The one with the hat is Bob, and the one with no hat is Sam, right? And so every time they see the hat, it identifies Bob, right? And so that creates a distinction in a very simple way. But if we have more texture and we have a more complex setting, we could look at, and this is something that I just kind of walked down the aisle of the library on Monday and saw and was like, that's amazing. But it works really well for this. So this is the Encyclopedia of Body Adornment. So this is everything from tattoos and piercings to other forms of fashion, to head wraps and necklaces and jewelry. Any of these things that you can give a meaningfulness to the character, a way for them to identify themselves, their culture, their beliefs or ideals, that's really great. And so D&D has some of them already built in. If you've got like a cleric's talisman or something like that that identifies them. If you're doing like the first introductions of a session and you're like, my character wears a talisman of Maliki, right? And nobody knows in the party who Maliki is as players or characters, well then that's not as meaningful. Like, we don't understand reference. But if you say they're wearing a talisman of a unicorn head, well that might trigger some false and true connections or beliefs. And it also can give the players a chance, whether they say the name or whether they say the talisman, it gives or describes the talisman, it can say, it gives the players a chance to do history checks for their characters. But body adornment is a fun one to think about. So does my character have any identifying marks, scars, tattoos? And I'll talk more about artifacts in a minute, but let's start there. So what are the things, that their fashion or piercings, tattoos, scars, or anything else that might identify themselves or culture? So go ahead and draw the character you're thinking of, and make sure and include one form of body adornment: tattoo, piercing, jewelry, something like that. Theoretically, if it connects to one of your hat things and the why of them, it adds kind of an alignment for the character, or a focus.
I've actually been over the course of the campaign that I'm playing currently. We're playing the Ghosts of Stormrush campaign, and I was like, I want to play a druid, not a Circle of the Sea druid, because I saw what it's kind of a stinky subclass.
Yeah.
So I'm playing a Circle of the Spores druid.
Okay.
Well, the character's backstory is that they were having a lot of trouble. They couldn't really decide what circle to dedicate the life to, or what to really train under.
Also,
so the mentor told them to just go out into the world and just see what happens. They eventually come to a town where they meet someone who they go out together and they get intoxicated, and then it's just a bunch of blood families trying to figure of cultists, red, and the guy that he met had like an Ouroboros tattoo. And he was a tiefling.
Okay.
Tiefling, and then my character is a gem dragonborn, Topaz.
Okay.
And he then, when he finally comes to, those mushrooms growing all over him. There's like flesh rotting, and his left arm has been replaced, and has been replaced by the arm of the person that he met.
Oh, that's awkward.
Yeah, so he's
That's like, I didn't just lose my kidney, someone else's is in there now. They took theirs in mine.
yeah, and so over the course of the campaign, I've been drawing the character.
You're trying to get out.
I haven't finished it,
And you
but
try to use
That's
your
really
blood
cool.
to
I
connect
like
with
it.
the
That's a
demon
lot of
that
fun.
hands and feet are just so, I hate drawing them.
That's a really interesting identifying
Use
mark.
celestial oil.
Yeah.
What do you guys have over here? What are you working on? What are you thinking?
Since my character is a Norseman, I was thinking doing like some Viking adornments.
Okay.
So I was thinking like the beard that has
The
like
braided
the
beard.
tied, yeah, the braided.
Like how to
Not like the metro guy who's like super businessman bearded. you know,
Yeah.
But different. Yeah. The Viking version.
Yeah.
like Stork the Bass.
Stork the boss. Yes, that guy.
Yeah, something like that. Trying to
Cool.
embody that into him, because I'm assuming he'd have longer hair because he lives in a colder place. Even though he is in a warmer place now, his hair would still be long. And since he's the beginning of the campaign starts as us all getting captured into slavery, and it starts as we're all gladiators in an arena, who are slaves and fighting to try to our freedom.
Yeah.
And so, you know, having like long disheveled hair at the beginning is an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But having like something to go along with that, so like the piece of metal in the beard,
Yeah.
or like braids that I have in my hair that remind me of home, or something like that. Kind of like, I don't know. I thought it was kind of a cool idea to kind of tie back into the backstory.
Yeah, and there's a part of me that is like, is tracking what you're building with the Thor arc through the Marvel movies, and his style changes, and it's a little bit separate because when he gets into gladiator mode, what do? The first thing they do is like they use that funky machine and like shaves off all his hair, right? And so what's interesting is that becomes a point where they're able to take Chris Hemsworth as an actor and shift his version of Thor from like what he kind of appears as like the static traditional Thor in like the Avengers movies, and then when he gets to that one's Ragnarok, right? So in Ragnarok, yeah, because that they fly into the thing. So in Ragnarok, then he has this happen, and so it's an opportunity for him to get this like glam up as for Thor, and also to signal that Thor's transforming.
Yeah.
And so
Or
it,
out of hammers.
yeah, so then he, you know, where he's not just the traditional, but he's getting in, and it also allows them to give him a better look because that long hair thing was really not working even with all the muscles. You know, the mullets are coming back, so who can say? But yeah, so these are ways that even just the hairstyle can be incorporated to identify, right? And if there's something about the braid that's meaningful for that. Hey Connor. So I would say like there's a part of me that I lean in as club advisor for a college club. I have been trying to draw more connections with with academic content, and so that's one of the reasons why this was a cool thing. But just so you guys know, on my YouTube channel, we've been doing interviews with specialists in different areas, professors on campus. So we did interviews with astronomy professor Donna Viola. I say her name wrong. It's not like the musical instrument. In astronomy, who's amazing. And also Nicole Neal in engineering, and we were talking about like the science of science fiction and crossover. We also recently did interviews. We did one with sociology professor Kendra Bell, and also two forensic anthropology professors who teach like the bone stones, death and dying, witchcraft, and then forensic anthropology. Like those are 4 different classes. And so we had a lot of discussion about the role of bones, deformation of bones, and things like that. But I like when we dig in a little bit because there's academic research on how people use these things, and so when we can work that into games, it makes or into the development of our characters, even if we're refashioning it or retooling, the mindsets are fun. So just to kind of think about that, there are 2 things. I'll read like a mini excerpt on body piercing, since that's one of these external adornments that might create identity for character. But in this book, body piercing refers to the practice of using needles to pierce the body, generally for the purpose of wearing jewelry. And piercings refer as well to the pierced part of the body, sometimes the jewelry worn. Body piercings can also refer to the practice of to specific practices for ritual, sexual purposes, bloodletting. And so there's a variety of different cultures that use body piercings and different locations of piercings to signify different identities, whether that's I'm married, or I have this affiliation, or this is the equivalent of my family crest. And it can vary across the world. There's also something called encumberments. And so encumberments refer to hanging or wearing weights on the body in order to restrict or often reshape the body for aesthetic reasons, for personal reasons. Wearing, for instance, of tight metal armbands and leg bands in some tribal societies can be an example where it's not only acting as jewelry, but when worn tightly enough and over time, they reshape the body by compressing that section of the arm or leg into a narrower shape. Corseting is also a form of encumberment. So if you think Elizabethan style fashion, right? So these sorts of cultural things can be significant and can be unique ways to embody a character's particular values. When we go back to the why do I hate this person, or who do I hate, or for the hat model, who do I adore, who do I trust, and the whys of those may be linked to practices or embodied in the fashion of the person. So yeah, we can be thinking about those ways of externally representing our characters through a variety of fashions, adornments or artifacts. So for the sake of that, I did bring in props as a silly person. So this costume I've used in a variety of ways. Some weeks, some years. The jacket's a little tight. I've been working out. Sure, that's it. So this, separate from this vest, if I wear this and I have like my brown vest and a pink shirt, it becomes Willy Wonka. If I use a brown shirt and I add, or a brown vest and burgundy shirt, and I add a leather pouch with something metallic, I'm an artificer. Especially, I have a little fancy thing that I can stick, that I've glued onto the hat from time to time to add to that. And so sometimes when we're thinking literally about hats, right? This type of hat signifies something different than if I were wearing a baseball cap with this coat, right? The other things I've done is I've worn this with just a very bright white shirt underneath. When we did the Hunger Games right after Songbirds and Snakes came out, so the purple coat, no hat, and a white undershirt or a white dress shirt had that snow style fashion that he has in the movie. Though he also, there's sometimes when he has a really bright red vest, which I think is supposed to tie to his, to the part of the character that is a bit more bloodthirsty or psychopathic, sociopathic, I'm not sure which one, if that makes sense. So we can look at these different things. It's always fun to add an element of that, either just in the description, because sometimes D&D is just storytelling, like the theater of the mind style storytelling, and then other times it can be fun to dress up, or wear a hat to help you embody, or to help with other people's immersion into the story. And then this was a costume constructed by my middle daughter. Oh gosh, what is this called? Mothy. Yes, it's basically like a dragon moth character she created. Minty Mothwing, that's what she calls it. So she made this hat, this face mask to go with the rest of the costume. But can you imagine someone trying to play a dragonborn or something like this, and coming to the table and talking like this and doing this the whole time? Or if they've got a silly voice, if it's supposed to, what kind of voice do you think this hat, this mask would have? Right? Do I make it silly? I always tell people when I'm doing voice work with people, always have 3 voices: a little kid, an old granny, and a dumb oaf. And so the easiest thing to add a silliness to this character is give it the little voice, without thinking about what the anatomy of the character is. I could just go, well, come on, you guys, I really need to go get some new snacks from the market, and and so if I even give it a lisp, it's well, now that took it way, sillier than perhaps it was meant. I could also give it a deep, gruff voice, but all of it is, the fun of crafting. So, say again? It's like, it could be like, why, like, they wear, yeah, so they always wear this mask, and you never actually see their face, like the Mandalorian. Yeah. Yeah. And then the moment that you take off the mask in character at the table becomes really meaningful. I know some people who have, like in the streamer group High Rollers D&D from Bristol, England, I think. One of them, he was an Aarakocra and who was missing an arm or a wing, and that was a significant story plot. So for like 10 episodes, he holds for hours his arm behind his back like this, like really owning it.
Sounds annoying.
Yeah. So, you know, that's an option. But we want to think about how how we might represent externally the things that are happening on a character's inside. So if we're looking at, when we're looking at the hat model in role play, and we're asking the questions of what a character hates, who they adore, what do they adore, and who they trust, we can start, as we engage with the why of those, trying to get them to represent that identity externally through varieties of body adornments, fashion. I brought books for this, hold on. The type of weapons they choose. So all of these things might be unique features of that particular character, even if the mechanics are the same as any other character. So I did bring references. So in a survey of costume history, we could go and flip through and try and say, okay, well, there was one, I just lost the picture. Let's go find one with lots of pictures. So, particular era, like sometimes the fashion they choose, like when someone describes like what does your character look, or when the DM asks, what does your character look like? And you say, well, they're wearing leather armor, they've got a scimitar on their side, and they have a cloak. That's actually like doesn't signal a whole lot if you think about it. But if you're saying they wear filigreed leather armor, embossed with gold thread, suddenly, like we have a class thing here. And so they have, and we can come in, what's fun about doing research is you get better language for describing it, and then you get to be like the source of cool knowledge at the table. So if you're saying, if they don't know what a doublet is, you get to describe a man's doublet is, is elaborated structure with paned sections on sleeves and chest, with a silk brocade or whatever.
It's too literal description.
In that instance. Yeah, and so, but if we're saying like, we can think about the people around the table and decide to orient to things that might signal, is our character from money, what their background is, if they're Radagast, do you describe weather-worn cloak with bird poop on the shoulder and twigs in the hair? Like, those count as these kinds of body adornments or external descriptives and whatnot. And so if the more we know about history or different eras, we might be able to signal through different costuming or through different fashion, something about that person's character. If we're running a game and we're doing NPCs, it could be our way of helping the players assume they can trust or distrust a person. I also have books that I brought for considering artifacts. What artifacts identify them, but different weapons, which can be fun. And so, like the Indian Qatar here, Assassin's Creed, I'm sure it's in there somewhere, is it? I think it is, I feel like it is. It should be if it's not. If they have a pistol, like Percy from Critical Role, is it a flintlock magical pistol, right? If they're doing a throwing knife, that's an interesting looking one. Is it when you're describing their armor, are they wearing a comb morion or morion? Is it a Roman legionnaire style armor or helmet? Those are distinct. And the way that those artifacts might be produced indicates something about the culture they come from. So we can think in a lot more depth sometimes than we imagine at first when we're developing the character. We're so focused on, can I get the stats, or can I, is it the class and the race, that we forget that all the other things can be fun identifying characteristics. And that doesn't mean that they're noticed immediately, right? I think one of the cool things about the Artificer is the Eldritch Tattoo, right? And so if you're a tabaxi with an eldritch tattoo, maybe the fur covers it, and then the first time you cast something from it, all the fur goes off, and you look like those creepy cats with no fur. What are those called?
Hairless cats?
The Sphinx guy?
Yeah, Sphinx cats.
Yeah. So then suddenly just that arm, right? Or like maybe it's the whole body. So the first time, so you're all hanging out with this fluffy white tabaxi person, and then the first time they cast a spell, it's like, well, that magic creates like radiation that makes them lose all their hair. And then we get to possibly in character have deeper conversations about the where magic comes from and should it be harmful as a philosophical like in character discussion, right? So these, when we make these choices, the thing that makes the characters interesting, one, they have something deeper that we're getting to see the drama of by going to the extreme emotions, hated or trust. And then that also signals to us what they might actually want and their character goals are. And so what's the promise that we're given in the introduction of that character long term based on that goal, right? And how can we get other players or NPCs to notice something that would allow that character to tell that story, right? That's really the biggest part. Like if I'm collaboratively storytelling, can I put something on my character that if someone gets a good enough history check on, suddenly they get deep insight into who I am or what I'm caring about, and then I have to now share as in character why that matters. Because we want to work those moments in where possible, because it makes for a more interesting game. It helps us with world building and allows us to do that traditional storytelling show versus tell. Like even if I'm telling the backstory, it's embedded in a trigger or a response to someone noticing something. So it's not just like, oh, we're sitting around in a tavern with nothing to do because we started in a tavern. So you guys probably don't know this about me, but my tattoo causes me to lose all my fur. Right? Is that cool? Or is it the first time you use it, suddenly all your fur falls off and people are like, why are you molting? Like, are you okay? Are you diseased? And the cleric who doesn't know is like, did they just have some sort of, like, what happened? And so now everybody's rushing thinking we have to solve this problem. And then after someone trying to bless or someone trying to cure wounds, it's like, oh, no, this is fine, guys, like, stop. But they've wasted the spell, which is part of the fun, right? It's the natural response that character would do. And so now, even if they burn a spell, it tells a more interesting story than sitting around the table at the pub going, hey, guys, guess what? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's where we can think through some of these other things. Just for funsies, I do have the history of military history book, which can be fun, though it also has tanks and stuff. You can get inspired by the tanks to think about, and other military vehicles to think, how would I do this with magic if you're in a fantasy realm? Just something to think about. It's kind of fun. So what else? What do we have here? So have you already put down on your sheet what artifacts identify that character? If you haven't yet, do that. Choose one.
I'm not sure how what kind of artifact would really work for my character.
So tell me what was one thing your character hated or adored, or who?
Well, they definitely they were mutilated pretty much, and now they're undead and they're covered in mushrooms and stuff. They hate how they look now.
Okay, so if I hate the fact that my skin is covered in mushrooms, what am I going to do? Am I going to cut them off, which leaves me with pockmarked scars? Am I going to cover them with a cloak? Am I going to have excessively baggy clothes so that even if there's a lump, it doesn't show through as much without a certain insight or perception? I knew a construction worker who had like 20 tumors that were 2 inches long. Like he was like a beefy guy, like through block and brick when I worked construction. And his whole arm was covered in these large round mounds, right? And so it became a noticeable, like, possible topic of conversation or intentionally avoided topic of conversation. So then how might someone like that cover that sort of thing up? If they're embarrassed about it. If they're the kind of person who flaunts who they are and what's happened to them and wants to tell the story as a form of traumatic processing, well, now it's like, well, maybe they wear less clothes.
It's more like they're disgusted with themselves.
Okay, and so if I'm disgusted with myself because of this body dysmorphia I have, do I cover it up? And how do I cover it up? Is it something that I have to protect because it hurts if the little mushrooms snap off? Or is it something that like I just do like full burqa?
Okay, maybe the cloak would be pretty good because it would be like, again, it's a way for them to cover it up, and also because the hideously disfigured, so trying not to find the neighboring children in the town or whatever, I guess.
Oh, like trying not to frighten, like that indicates like that motivation indicates a social concern and awareness. So that would lean more toward a good lined character, right? That I'm intentionally covering up both because I'm embarrassed and because when I've come into the presence, I look scary, right? It could be the same motivation. I think in Critical Role season 2, where who's the guy that played Grog? Why am I spacing? Anyways, there's a character who's a half orc, I think, and he files his tusks down, right? What up?
Nice guys.
Thanks.
Something you can do is, I already mentioned this earlier, the mask thing. Easily,
Don't even with that.
I did bring different edition.
probably something that was.
I did make those.
You did my job. I'm sorry, I was in class. We got What is this? Why
Yeah.
did you give this to me?
I added, it's a costume history. So I added an element to today.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
That's not embarrassing.
Well, I did the same workshop. I realized I'm doing the same workshop 3 times. I should add some texture the last time, especially if it happens to be the same people showing up.
Right, where are the pictures? This is mostly words.
You just looked up and flashed through 12 pictures.
12 pictures?
Okay, so wait, how many on time?
Oh, I guess there's
I have 5 minutes left. Let's not lose sight of things I might need to show you. Okay, no, actually, but at least for this sake, so we did get through. The cool thing is Noella and Dakota didn't get to see me wear this or this. Your loss.
I'm glad. That is not a loss.
You're probably right.
Yeah, but that's a win, Chris.
So, with 5 minutes left, we will just. What questions is this bringing up about developing interesting characters? Since all of you are well versed, I'm not going to go through the D&D Beyond versus fastcharacter.com. What questions does this bring up for you specifically? You guys got here just at the end.
Look at the baby, Greg.
How many weapon options are there? 'Cause you showed the weapon book. Is there just a way?
So in D&D, remember that you can re-skin anything.
Yeah.
So you can, like a scimitar and a short sword have the same stats, 1d6, light finesse, I think, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't matter what it looks like. It matters functionally, it doesn't matter what it looks like. You say what happens, right? And so if the Indian Qatar is your equivalent of a short sword, because it's a light weapon, and maybe it's bigger than a dagger, well, you get to decide, right? So how many weapon options are anything you can think of?
Because I'm thinking it'd also be fun to try and find a way to design your own balanced weapon.
Yeah.
In case it doesn't exist or there isn't an alternative like that.
So I will say, if we're taking these principles and we have a character, we can think about, one of the things I love about engaging with historical and cultural considerations is, where did my character grow up? Did they learn how to carve bone or stone, or do they have blacksmithing skills? Well, if that's the case, would they make their own weapon, right? Would someone they knew make a weapon of bone, right? Does that, if they're a tribal, what era in history did their culture align with? Stone Age, Bronze Age, whatever. And how does that change how they fight or what they fight with?
One of my favorite weapons to exist is the chakrams. But more specifically, those fantasy chakrams where they can split apart and become big.
Are those the 3 spike ones? Which would remind me what the
The chakram is literally just a circle that you chuck.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's like a
frisbee.
Oh,
It's like
Xena
a
Warrior Princess. Yeah, okay.
And then there's
Don't judge me,
some
it's an
fantasy
English show.
versions where you can split them apart and make them melee weapons.
That's cool. I do like that.
So-
Yeah. So, and if that's something you'd want, you could either make that be 2 daggers, Or you could talk with the DM and say, like, I'm going to make these a certain way. Can they be worth more damage? And they're like bigger than average. Like maybe it's like buckler size. And maybe you wear them like a buckler and then you peel them off into
That'd also be a cool.
hand
idea.
weapons.
Make
Yeah.
a shield chakra.
Yeah, and it's like, and then
That's
when
literally
someone's,
just the first
and then when someone's, when you go into like a royal palace and they're like, leave all your weapons here. No blades, no bows. Robin Hood, King of Thieves style. Sorry, old movie. You have the buckler, but if we know what Gobber says, if you have to choose between a sword or an axe and a shield, what does he say to choose? How to Train Your Dragon? Anybody?
I can't remember.
He says use a shield when you're fighting a dragon. He's like, you have to use a shield. Come on, guys.
Probably.
I love How to Train Your Dragon. I just can't remember that.
Persuasion roll to try and
Yeah.
get that in there.
Yeah, it could be fun because it's not an obvious weapon, right?
Yeah.
Right, so that'd be cool. That'd be cool. And it doesn't matter if you didn't know that movie reference because they're coming out with live action.
I know that. Now that you've said it,
Yeah.
I forgot it.
It's okay. I tend to be known for obscure pop culture references. What other questions as we close this out? Last few minutes of it and whatnot.
I read this entire book just now.
I believe you. Final questions? What would you share, how would you take this into your own game, or who is a friend that you think would be able to use one part of this and which part?
I think probably most of my friends, since my group were all pretty fairly new to D&D, only like, well, the campaign that I'm playing in right now is only our second like campaign of it. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So all of this could, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Like, one of my friends, he couldn't figure out how to write his character, so he told the DM, yeah, how about my character just has amnesia? And then you basically being like, you can come up with a past to come back and like, I don't know, haunt them or like something to come back and, build off of.
Make the
Yeah.
DM make your stories that you don't even remember.
Pretty much.
So one thing I've done before is, if we didn't want to have to worry about any prep for anyone, the DM opened with whatever scene they could think of, and the players rolled their stats as they were needed. And they woke up Memento style with amnesia. So it's like, I think in that version, it was a 2-player game, and they both woke up in wood boxes in the dark, so they didn't even know what they looked like. And so then we rolled at random to see what their race and character would be, or what their race would be, when light hit them, or when they tried to feel around and noticed, if they're dragonborn, their claws scraping, right? When they tried to break out of the box, we rolled the stats for strength. So it can be really fun. So it can be a fun, like, discover as you go. There's a way to play that way, so it's fun. You just have to have the blank character sheet and not worry about class and stuff or whatever at first. Ryan, thoughts about someone who might be able to use some of this or might benefit from thinking this way?
I think like most people, like the group that I play with, kind of could definitely like use some work on backstory, myself included, just as far as like character creation goes, because ones that I've made in the past have been super in depth, and some of my friends, it's like the same thing. So just having like the help in making a backstory would be great additions to the character.
Nice, good. Can't ever trust you guys. So there's no way. Cool. All right. Well, so just as a recap, then we have for the hat model. The reason it's a fun model is because when we are role playing, whether we're individual characters or a DM, we have to think about the various hats and how they might signal a character. Thinking through specific things in that acronym. What are who your character hates? What are who your character adores? And the people they trust. Become really meaningful questions to ask for character development. And if it helps, it's always fun to wear props. So if you have a hat that helps you kind of keep it kind of identified, it can be really useful. There was one part of this that I didn't lean into. I said I was going to talk about physically embodying those characters or those traits and vocally embodying those. I realized I didn't talk about those. We talked about other things. So if you're interested in that conversation, I have a deep dive in linguistics, or you could go back on the live streams, you could go back and look at that section, the second portion of the other workshops I did, where we talk a little bit more about physical embodying, and like what does it mean if the person is supposed to be a granny? Do they hunch over? If they're supposed to, and what does that change about their voice? So with that, you can use a lot of these things to consider how you role play, especially thinking descriptively and trying to embed those meaningful character beliefs, ideals, bonds, connections into the way they present themselves to the world. Okay, cool. That's what I have for you today. So thanks for hanging out and thanks for participating and engaging. Sorry you only got here for the last 5 minutes. Do you have any questions about developing interesting characters at this point?
No, I was here for the last one. Yeah, it was just
And no questions? Like I was so thorough, it didn't spark any thoughts.
Yeah, that's why everyone should go watch the live stream from the last one also and subscribe.
I did tell the club that if I get to 415 subscribers, I'm at 411 now. I did tell them if I get to 415, I will do an extended vocal video of Kermit the Frog. And I realized if I do that, I will read the first couple pages of The Hobbit, I think.
Don't worry, I'll make a couple accounts just as
So,
Will you throw the Gettysburg Address on the end, please?
Yes!
Kermit the Frog.
Yes!
Yes.
I will do Hobbit at 415, and if I get to 420 subscribers, I'll do the Gettysburg Address and Kermit the Frog.
Let's go.
All right,
Gotcha.
have a good one. I have to go teach. And then we do have 2 other workshops today on running games. We have one on developing encounters, where I'll talk about different tools you can use to develop encounters either before or on the fly and that sort of thing, and keeping them balanced to your party. And then the last workshop of the day, which I think is at 3:30, is advanced DMing, where we talk about complex tabletop dynamics and kind of leaning into the leadership role that you have as a DM and working with challenging players, whether that means anyone from 3 years old to 63 years old, people with different beliefs than you, or just neurodiverse players at the table who might need different approaches to make sure the table stays balanced. But yeah, that's what we have later today. Thanks for hanging out. What is it? I went over by 5 minutes?
No.